Okay, so tomorrow let's continue. We've answered up through question 6 by now. We are now on Explore, page 6 of 3.1. And the first question we're going to be looking for is, how did trade become important in Mesopotamia? Farming and other jobs. So this might hint to trade. Have you ever had to work on a group project? To efficiently complete a complex project, the group has to divide the work and each group member must use his or her skills to get the job done. Ancient Mesopotamia used a similar division of labor to build and maintain their large irrigation systems. Some archaeologists even believe that the first Mesopotamian cities were formed by groups of farmers banding together to build irrigation systems. With irrigation systems in place and advanced farming techniques in use, Mesopotamia became a very rich farming area. Tools like the cedar plow meant farmers could get more work done with fewer people and in less time. Soon, farmers began to produce a surplus of food. This meant that there was enough food and time for some workers to focus on other jobs. As the cities grew, different members of Mesopotamian society continued to develop specialized skills that met the needs of the people living in the cities. Some people worked as potters, making pottery and utensils. Others worked as weavers, making cloth. Scribes were employed to write texts and keep track of trading. Traders bought and sold goods, and musicians played music for people. Still, most people had jobs dealing with agricultural production, such as working as farmers and grain grinders. Thanks to the farmers, cities were supported with surplus food and other jobs were allowed to thrive. With plenty of food to feed everyone, the cities continued to grow. Ancient Mesopotamians developed city-states that covered several hundred square miles. Farmers outside city limits could provide food to cities in exchange for goods from the cities and protection from the leaders. These city-states often fought over territory and access to water. The stronger states developed into even larger empires. Kings, judges, and religious figures arose as authoritative leaders of these societies. So this page here starts to hint at trading when it says farmers outside city limits could provide food to cities in exchange for for goods from the cities and protection from the leaders. So that's a form of trading, but that's not specific enough for what we're going for. So let's move on to the next page and see if they give us more detail. Page 7, trade and barter. How did trade become important in Mesopotamia? We have that question right here. As the people of Mesopotamia began to specialize and learn trades, the culture became more independent. People could not do everything for themselves, but they were able to trade food or other goods and services to get what they needed. The people of Mesopotamia began to learn and work in special trades. Because of this, they had to rely more on each other. People could not do everything for themselves. However, they were able to trade food or other goods and services to get what they needed. Work was divided, and goods were exchanged in a tradition-oriented economy, also called a traditional economy. In this system, cultural and social relationships play an important role in deciding how goods are produced. Jobs might be passed down from parent to child, and farm plots might be shared communally by neighbors. At first, Mesopotamians only traded crops and goods with other people who lived in their city-state. Then, people from different cities began to trade with one another. They traded wheat, barley, and wood. Eventually, traders traveled across the desert and by rivers and the Persian Gulf to trade goods with other societies such as Greece. They even traded with civilizations as far away as India and Egypt. As trade grew, more people came to the cities. Ur and Nippur were both major centers of trade and commerce. Commerce is the act of buying and selling goods and services. Initially, Mesopotamians used a barter system to handle their trades. In a barter system, people trade one object or service for another. For example, wood is traded for wheat. Scribes kept records of business transactions by writing them down on clay tablets. Historians have learned much about the economy of Mesopotamia by examining these business records. Now, this paragraph here gives you a lot of insight as to how trade became important to Mesopotamia, because it started here and it grew to this. This paragraph here, we might want to look at the next question for. How did Mesopotamians track trade? This paragraph here will help you with that. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Okay, last page, page 8. We're looking to answer the last question here. How did Mesopotamians transport goods on water? Oils, grains, and woven textiles were taken out of Mesopotamia and traded for goods such as wine, precious metals, jewels, and timber. Merchants from other lands also came to Mesopotamian cities to trade their goods. Merchants used several methods to transport their goods. Heavy products, such as large amounts of grain and mud bricks, were easier to transport by boat. On the other hand, precious gems were small and relatively light. They could easily be transported over land on foot or by using donkeys and other pack animals. Overseas transport. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers made transporting goods from Mesopotamia easier. Traders often used boats to transport goods for trade. Lightweight boats, called gufas or river boats, were used to transport goods downstream. They were made of reeds or canvas and a natural tar called bitumen that made them waterproof. Strong currents helped move the boats downstream, but coming upstream was another story. When traveling upstream, people or animals were used to towboats. When traveling by boat, merchants sometimes had to navigate down the Euphrates River and then through the Persian Gulf. The waters of the Euphrates were calm, but the Persian Gulf waters were not. Pirates also traveled the Gulf, looking for goods to steal from a merchant ship when it was on the water or docked at night. For safety reasons, seagoing traffic was strictly controlled by a series of laws established by the governments of the city-states. These laws regulated the way traffic moved in and out of ports and set fair wages for sailors and workers. So the question was, how did Mesopotamians transport goods on water? And that appears to have been answered here in this paragraph, the first one of overseas transport. Travel by land. Not all goods in Mesopotamia were produced along waterways, and not all markets were easily accessible by boat. By 3000 BCE, the Mesopotamians had already begun to develop a system of roads linking cities to waterways and to each other. Some of the roads in Mesopotamia were even paved. Mesopotamians used stone and bitumen to create an asphalt-like pavement. One of the earliest known long-distance roads was a 1,500-mile highway between the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean Sea, essentially connecting Mesopotamia with waterways that could take traders to even more distant lands. Over time, more roads were constructed around the region and trade became even more common. The Babylonian Empire ruled Mesopotamia approximately from 2000 BCE to 1600 BCE. During this period, merchants traveled a network of roads from southern Mesopotamia across the Fertile Crescent to bring goods to and from trading centers. Some local traders carried their goods in packs on their backs as they walked the roads. For longer distances, Merchants used donkey and carts to transport their goods. Donkeys carried goods to faraway trading centers, including Kanesh, which was about 600 miles to the northwest of northern Mesopotamia, in ancient Turkey. Such a trip could take a month or longer. Some traders traveled overland as far as India and Egypt. Trade with distant lands helped Mesopotamia to grow and thrive. Mesopotamians used their natural resources and innovations in agriculture and transportation to build a flourishing civilization. Thousands of years later, our societies are still influenced by the geography around us. Like the people of ancient Mesopotamia, we are constantly inventing technologies that help us harness and use natural resources. All right. Don't forget, you can pause and rewind this and go back as many times as you need to help you focus on different parts of what we read. If there are anything that we can do to adjust this to make it more helpful, we'll have that conversation on Monday. Have a great weekend.